Hi, in the spirit of questions we're afraid to ask, I'm curious about the extremists, accepting that it is a minority, but what are some of the reasons that you think there are lying underneath some Islamic opposition to U.S. values, for instance, Middle Eastern politics and oil, capitalism and interest rates? What are some of these underlying issues, and how do you think that those issues are not being discussed in part because of this argument of stressing the moderates and how the majority of Muslims are moderate? And I feel in that process, are you losing the opportunity to say, well, in the minority of extremists, there might be some arguments that we should be talking about instead of saying, don't look at the extremists, look at the majority, and then you're losing that conversation, which the First Amendment right is really here for.
I mean, I guess what I would say is the term moderate itself, it depends on who's calling who a moderate, right? I mean, for someone on the left, they may be perfectly moderate, and then to someone on the right, that person may be an extremist, right? So that's part of the issue. I think what we're going to see, and I think what's so fascinating about what's happening in the Arab Spring, and it maps out over, Muslim democracies were established well before the Arab Spring, places like Turkey and Indonesia, so on and so forth, is that the dynamics of the debate are actually very similar to the dynamics in the United States, right? You have these sort of religious parties that accuse the liberals of being, Europhilic, weirdo, foreign, secular, humanist, atheist, communist, et cetera, slash Obama. Then you have these sort of liberal parties, these guys are all crazy and they want to drag us into some theological, theocratic nightmare, and they don't use their brains and they don't understand what things are, and they're just a bunch of hicks. And I mean, it's the exact same language, right? I mean, it's just that if you watch what's happening in Egypt, for example, or Tunisia, it's mapping out in the same way. And I think what we really need is to say, and this is where the legal thing comes in, is that there are bounds of acceptable political behavior, and within that, let's welcome all different opinions, right? Everyone from Ron Paul to Occupy Wall Street, right? I mean, let's have a debate and a discussion in a civil fashion. And I do agree that we shouldn't exclude some of these voices, and I think this is something that people have missed. In Egypt, for example, some of these Salafi groups that people are panicking about were 15 years ago, some of these were advocating the armed overthrow of the state. And now they're putting up candidates. Now granted, they have very conservative social views, but that's a good, that's a good direction for people to be moving in, and now they're part of that conversation. I think, as Asma said, a lot of these opinions that people identify as extreme vis-a-vis American foreign policy, so on and so forth, are not really that extreme in those contexts. They're actually just general opinions. And that's something that we're going to have to come to terms with as we engage these democracies.